Our garden has finally kicked into gear and it's getting so beautiful and bountiful.
Oh, you guys, this basil over here, you can't see because it's sunflower, but this basil smells so summery good. I'm not sure what I'm gonna make with this. I already made pesto. I could probably do another batch of pesto, so I'm not sure, but I've got to figure out what to do with all of this produce today. So stay tuned to see what I come up with. I'm thinking the cabbage. I'm going to do some curtido. That's how you say it. It's seriously amazing. But the biggest thing that I have to do today is I have to process a whole bunch of chicken. I think 30 chickens, because we butchered the rest of our meat birds over the weekend, and I need to get them in the freezer today, in addition to processing all of this produce. Well, I guess it's time to get started. You gotta get started if you want to get done, right? Let's do this.
Along the way, I'm going to give you guys some practical tips, and the first one that I have is when you are washing or dealing large portions of produce, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. And if you have a large family and a lot of produce, or just a lot of produce that you're dealing with, it works best to wash your produce outside and to use large containers like bins and large bowls to wash everything with. And of course, the hose. Doing this makes the process go so much faster than it would if you were just standing at your kitchen sink washing everything. And my second tip is to purchase some bath towels that are a different color than your normal bath towels. I just got these from the Dollar General store and they were super cheap, and these are perfect for drying large quantities of produce. These two tips help me wash an amount of produce in about an hour or two. Previously, it would have taken me maybe half a day. This tip is especially helpful for lettuces and leafy greens. Speaking of lettuce, do you struggle with bitter lettuce?
This is oak leaf, a more heat-resistant variety of lettuce. In a heat wave, you want to pick your lettuce, if you have any, that's made it through the heat wave. You want to pick it in the morning because as the heat starts to rise in the day, the lettuce becomes more bitter.
There's some dirt on here still, so I want this butter crunch lettuce to last. And I've learned that you don't want to wash your lettuce before you store it in the fridge. You want to just pick it and store it straight away. I left the root on, the dirt, just to give it a little bit more longevity because I harvested a lot. I might have friends coming to pick some up, I'm not sure. I just want this to last for a while for us and for friends. If I didn't harvest some of this today, I'm not sure it would have lasted much longer because I think in another week or so it might be bolting. So that's why I harvested as much as I did today. But I'm just putting it in these containers and then I'm going to refrigerate it just as is, and we'll take it out and wash it as we want to eat it, and it'll be fresher that way and last longer.
In this scene, I'm pausing for a moment. My high schooler just came over and he had some questions. We just started back to homeschool. If you enjoy my homeschooling content, stick around for part 2. I'm going to have a special message for you, an announcement, and a peek at our new homeschool room for the 24-25 homeschool year. To begin with, I want to introduce you to this luxurious lemon basil cake. I have a little niece and she has a birthday coming up. She requested to come spend her birthday with her cousins. That would be my children. So we are going all out for her birthday party. I'll be doing a chocolate cake, but I wanted to do something extra special. This cake has raspberry filling and it is gluten-free. You guys, it was just absolutely wonderful. It is from this delightfully fun little cookbook. I have an abundance of basil coming in from the garden, and I've already made pesto, so I thought, what could I do that's not pesto? And this came to me.
Some of you might remember me talking about this cookbook last year. I talked about it in a video, one of my videos last summer. It's Garden to Table. It is such a fun book. I'm gonna be making some recipes from this book today, I decided.
What makes this book special is that it's a little cookbook for parents and children to use together, and it is to help children start enjoying and eating more vegetables and learn gardening skills. This book literally takes you through the stages of growth, from starting your seeds to growing them. It's where I learned that hairs on your carrots mean that your carrots aren't getting enough water. It's packed with good information for adults and children. I'll link to it in the description below. Okay, I changed quite a few things about this recipe. I changed it up so much, and I needed to do that to adapt it to be gluten-free. We are not a gluten-free family, but whenever I make desserts or anything that doesn't use sourdough or the fermentation process, I like to use gluten-free because it's simply easier on the digestion, and quite honestly, I think gluten-free desserts taste better. All right, so what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to put the recipe on my blog, and I'm also going to put it in the description down below for you. If you don't want to make my version, the gluten-free version, definitely get the cookbook for the recipe to make this yourself. And honestly, just get the cookbook anyways. The recipes in it are absolutely delicious. I know you won't be disappointed, and it will be such a fun book for you to do with your children. I know I sound like a broken record, but cooking in the kitchen and inviting your children in to spend the time with you is just one of the greatest ways to spend some quality time together. And bonus, teach them how to cook, which is an important skill they're going to need. If you don't want your cakes to stick, there's a couple ways you can go about this. You can use parchment paper, and you will need to cut it to size. So you'll want a piece on the bottom and then a piece around the edges. Another alternative would be to use nonstick pans like this, make sure they don't have any scratches, and to grease them thoroughly. Butter works the best. Then you want to lightly dust them with some flour. After that, you want to spray them with some pan spray. So that's kind of a triple tips here for keeping your cakes from sticking to the pan.
Smell this.
When I told my oldest daughter what kind of a cake this was and I described it, she said, that sounds kind of sophisticated for a little girl. So I don't know if my niece is gonna love it or hate it. I do know that the adults are gonna love it, and I will have that chocolate cake as the backup just in case. What I'm doing in this scene is I'm just taking a knife and I'm running it through very gently without touching any of the sides or the bottom, just to make sure there's no big air bubbles in here. Next, I'm tamping them down, again, just to make sure all the air bubbles have left. I had a little extra, so I'm making a small cake here for our family to enjoy through the next, I was gonna say week, but then I realized it's gonna only last us probably 10 minutes. That smells good. I'm gonna dry some of these for some lotion. I have a recipe book for lotions, and you take the sunflowers and you dry them, and then you infuse them in oil, and then use the oil to make all kinds of lotions and creams with. I'm excited to do that. It's one of the reasons I planted sunflowers. I've already filmed and prepared to publish a video talking all about homemade DIY lotions and creams. Make sure you are subscribed and have hit the bell for notifications if you would like to see that video when it is published.
Got some overgrown pickling cubes here and then regular size ones. I think I'm gonna do fermented pickles with these.
I'm gonna start with chopping up some garlic. I need this for a couple recipes, some feta cheese that I'm gonna be making, and the pickles. We have so much garlic from our garden that we harvested. There's something so special and delicious about freshly harvested garlic. It is so strong and tasty. Before I jump into my fermented pickles recipe, let's talk about bitter cucumbers. There's a couple things that can cause your cucumbers to get bitter. One is not watering them enough. They need a lot of water, steady water every day. The second thing that can result in really bitter pickles is picking them too late in the day. They're kind of like lettuce. You gotta pick them early in the morning before it starts to get too hot outside. And a little trick I learned from Carolyn over at Homestead Family Channel is to cut the ends off the pickles right away after you harvest them. I'm going to share my fermented pickles recipe that I've used for over 20 years. First though, you want to prepare your cucumbers. You want the pieces to be somewhat uniform in size so they ferment evenly. I'm cutting the extra large ones in half, and on the small ones I'm just making a little slit down the side about halfway through the cucumber. This is important because it allows the liquid to get inside so they don't rot before they ferment. Per each each quart, you want to put in a tablespoon of mustard seeds, a couple heads of fresh dill, a tablespoon of salt. You want sea salt or some kind of a salt that doesn't have iodine in it. You want 4 tablespoons of whey and approximately a cup of filtered water. This couldn't be easier. You put all this in the jar, put your cucumbers in, and voila. It's as simple as that. Next, you leave them on your counter to ferment. You want to make sure there's a lot of headspace, about an inch. You don't want the vegetables coming above the water. You want to keep this at room temperature for about 3 to 4 days before you put it in the refrigerator. After you put it in the refrigerator, you want to leave them for a couple weeks.
If I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper, would it make any difference? Would it change for the better if I wrote you?
What I have here are weights to help hold the vegetables down in the jar to keep them from coming above the liquid. And what I have as well are these lids. These lids are great because they allow the oxygen to escape that the fermentation process creates. Highly recommend them. I'll link to them, description below.
Is it maybe because I never knew quite where I was, then suddenly you told me.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically speaking, you have got some cukes that turned out ever so slightly bitter. If they're very bitter, just toss them. You can't save them. But if they're only mildly bitter, like barely their aftertaste, there is something you can do to fix that. So just prepare your cucumbers. I'm going to chop these. You could slice them, whatever you want. And then you want to completely saturate them in salt. That salt will help pull out the bitterness. And you just want to let it sit in the salt for probably like an hour, maybe 2, and then rinse your cucumbers. After that, pack them down into a jar and fill the jar with white vinegar, or you could use white wine vinegar. This was a pickling cuke, and as we all know, pickling cukes are traditionally a little bit bitter, and the pickling process removes the bitterness, but this particular cucumber was too big to make pickles with. Well, I saved it by doing this little technique. Next, we're going to make some curtido. I'm going to have 1 head of cabbage, some little carrots that I got from the garden, an onion, small onion, a couple cloves of garlic, a tablespoon of dried oregano, about a half a teaspoon or a little bit less, maybe of cumin, tablespoon of chili flake, and lastly, about a tablespoon and a half of sea salt. This really couldn't be easier. You want the cabbage pieces to be uniform. You want to shave it. You want to slice your carrots pretty thin. Simply mix all of these ingredients up in a bowl when you get them all chopped up and let the salt work its magic for an hour or 2. It will start to draw moisture out.
We got time on our side. We're in a state of hope. I need you on my fire. I want you to know that every time you're away, I long for you so much I can find my way. We got everything here, at least to stay alive, and the time that we share makes it all worthwhile. Got this place on our own.
I shared this recipe a while back. It's another wonderful cabbage recipe. You just take Italian salad dressing and some mayonnaise. Equal parts of each will do. And then you take cabbage, olives, cheese of your choice. We like mozzarella, feta, or cheddar. Olives, bacon bits, or bacon, which is better, of course. And that's it. This makes what I call my Italian cabbage salad. It's so, so good. My oldest daughter is helping make hamburger buns over here. After a couple hours, the curtido is nice and juicy, and it's ready ready to be put in the jar. And so what you do is you just put it in your jars, and you want something to tamp it down with, and you want the juices to come above the cabbage and vegetables. It's really nice to have those weights I told you about when you're making anything like this, because the small pieces will float to the top and they will go back. So it's nice to have weights to hold all of the vegetables and the small bits and pieces down into the liquid. And this is one of those things that is especially nice to have a fermentation lid for. This is kind of the same process as with pickles. I like to add a little bit of whey to this as well to lacto ferment it and just kind of speed up the process. Again, this takes about 3 days. You'll know it's done once the color starts to change. If your house is cooler, it might take a little while longer, and if your house is warm, it may not take quite as long, but 3 days is about the max time, sometimes 4 days. A couple years ago, I started making my own seasoning salts, and it's so easy to do. So I have some celery tops here. I'm gonna dry the celery. I love using dried celery in soups. If I buy celery, I usually don't use all of it before it goes bad. But with dried celery, of course that's dried, so it's never gonna go bad. But the tops, I like to set aside and do this special little treat with. I'm gonna add some onion to mine as well, so it's gonna be kind of an onion celery salt. There's about 2 cups of the celery leaves and a couple cups of the onion tops. I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of salt to this, and I'm going to blend it up in my food processor. I want it to be little small bits and pieces. This does take quite a bit of work for the food processor. You have to turn it on and off a lot of times. And eventually it does mince down though. You'll want a food dehydrator for this. I love my Nesco. I'm using the sheets that come with it. They are solid. If I was to put it right on the rocks, the salt and the herbs would fall through once they turn dry. I'm just spreading all the little pieces out so it is uniform, and I'm going to dehydrate it for a couple days until they're completely dried out. Once that's done, I'll probably need to put it in the food dehydrator one more time to blend it up again and make it powdery. And you can use it for seasoning on whatever you want. One of our favorite vegetables to eat straight from the garden, almost as is kohlrabi. If you're not familiar with this fun little vegetable, it's a little bit like a sweet radish, I want to say. I don't really like radishes, but I love kohlrabi. You just simply peel it. I like mine without salt. The rest of the family likes theirs with salt. Definitely try it both ways to see which way you like it best. But this vegetable is a good source of vitamin C, B6, and potassium. Really surprised to find some super late spinach in the garden. Usually the spinach has all bolted by now. I like to grow spinach and kale, even though kale is said to be not good for you anymore. That's definitely something that is interesting to research. I like to steam it though, and with the kale I like to boil it for a couple minutes and then just mince up the spinach or the kale like this and freeze it. And I like to use it in lasagnas and certain dishes like breads throughout the winter. I also like to do a couple batches just for Christmas spanakopita. Over here, I'm wrapping up these cakes for my niece's birthday party in wax paper, and I'm going to freeze them. We'll frost them later. I just wanted to show you guys our eggs. This spring, I invested in cream leg bars, Morans, Starlight Green Eggers, Aracanas, Americanas, and they're starting to lay. It is so much fun. The kids go crazy every day over these colorful eggs. Recently, I discovered I can add my herbs to the milk while I'm heating it up to make feta cheese. And it works better to have a feta that is seasoned more all the way through. Typically, when making flavored fetas, the herbs and the seasonings are added to the brine that the cheese soaks in. So this is a little experiment that I have tried recently that actually works. I was afraid that for some reason the cheese might not cheese, but it did. I'm cutting the curd of the feta right now, and now I'm just turning it gently to make sure all the pieces are uniform. And yeah, if you guys want to know how to make feta, I do have a recipe video sharing the process. I will link to it below for you. It isn't always more affordable to grow your own, honestly. It really depends on where you live. And where we live, it's definitely more affordable to grow our own. We can do so and do so organically, or as close to organic as possible, much more affordably than if we were to go to the grocery store or elsewhere and purchase all of our food. This is our potato patch right here. It's not doing as well as it was last year. I had kind of a brain fart. I forgot to fertilize it this year, so we just fertilized it and hopefully that will make them step out of it. This year I grew a whole lot of beets and carrots extra because I wanted to grow some for our animals. We have goats and chickens. So I'm harvesting some beets for my goats. One of my does, I think she's pregnant. She just kidded in March, so this would have been a through the fence breeding. So I'm trying to do what I can to build up her nutrition. Our cut flowers are just gorgeous in the garden this year. They bloomed a little bit sooner than they did last year. Everything's a little late this year because the weather has just been really crazy. Our spring was kind of up and down and all over the place. We do have some nice kale here. Last year the bugs got to it, but this year it's doing really well.
This is only a portion of the garlic. We have a lot more.